Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having an enjoyable day. I want to welcome you to our live stream. Really excited for this one. It's related to the Neon. We're celebrating the Neon milestone. If you've been part of the ICP community for a long time, you know that governance, especially decentralized governance, is extremely important to us within Liquidity Foundation, the ICP community, and really kind of redefining how governance can work in the future, one that empowers everyday people to make decisions on their own behalf. ICP is the home of DAOs and decentralized governance. If you aren't familiar, 16 out of the 25 most active DAOs are on ICP, according to DeFi Llama. The NNS DAO, the overarching DAO of the Internet Computer, has the most amount of TVL locked, protecting the DAO itself at $1.1 billion right now. And the Neon milestone is really a next step forward in this progress. So you're going to hear from some of the leaders in decentralized governance, all from the Liquidity Foundation today. We're going to talk about the Neon milestone, how it's going to bring more clarity to your governance portfolios, how it's going to highlight opportunities for you as a DAO participant, and then really just bring a lot more tooling to the DAO process, trying to supercharge our governance practices. So I'm going to be talking with Laura Schmidt, Youssef, and Ashavir from Liquidity Foundation. And first let's bring up Laura, and love to hear from you, Laura, of like what was the goals of this new milestone, and give us some background on what Liquidity is trying to accomplish with it.
Yeah, happy to. Welcome everyone. So basically, we kind of have two main goals in this milestone. We could roughly kind of segment it to, at first, targeted to the really NNS Dapp users. We want to show them better, like have a better overview of their portfolio so they know what tokens and neurons they own, what they're currently doing with them, where they maybe could participate more or optimize their voting rewards, which is, of course, always a great motivation to participate more in governance. So this is really like the first main goal. And then the other one is, once you're part of a DAO, like really empower those DAO communities, make it easier to govern these steps on ICP, and give them additional tools to just kind of simplify this maintenance a little bit, because obviously these DAOs, as you said, are very important, and they also have a lot of responsibilities. So we want to make it as easy as possible.
It's one of the pleasures working for the Liquidity Foundation is how interested we are in this decentralized governance. Internet Computer launched under the control of a DAO called the NNS. We've launched a framework called the SNS, which allows any application to be controlled by a DAO. Give us why the emphasis on governance and participation? What are we trying to accomplish with DAOs?
Yeah, that's a great question, and great to remind ourselves of that. So basically, the decentralization is like the backbone of the security of ICP, because it really ensures that there's no single point of failure or single entity we need to trust when we run dApps on the Internet Computer, right? So that's really why the decentralization of the NNS, which governs the whole platform, is very important. And similarly for the SNSs that govern individual dApps, as a user of this dApp, you want to be sure that the dApp will not just be stopped or that it evolves in the right direction. And for that, you don't want to just trust one single entity. And therefore, we have a decentralized community that really governs this. And on top of that, why we have the DAOs as they are, basically how they're shaped is also a little bit adding to this motivation that we've discussed before, or incentivization, right? That people really stake. And then basically they're incentivized to act in the long-term interest of these respective DAOs.
I love it. Especially just aligning both the governance activities as well as the incentive to participate is two key motivations. Youssef, let me bring you to the stage and talk about accessibility and rewarding. Laura kind of talked on this a little bit, but give us the motivation behind the emphasis to empower NNS Dapp users.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. That's a great question. The NNS Dapp, and especially ICP, right, is about the community. It's very important to be part of a community. but users were lacking information about the rewards, right? So they were going to the NNS Dapp, they were seeing their tokens, they were seeing the neurons, but it was difficult to put all together and understand what these neurons they were doing for them, right? And we introduced a series of changes this year, and with the main goal, right, to bring a lot of insights to users so they can fully understand how their tokens, how their neurons are being used, and also help them understand if they can be optimized, if they can be changed, and take a different direction on how they want to be part of ICP.
I love it. I know as a participant myself, I've noticed my NNS front end changing over time. I think probably the first thing that stood out to me was the portfolio page. If you're able to even share your screen, we can go ahead and pull it up. But like, give us some background on what changes have happened on the portfolio page.
Sure. Let me share my screen. I think you can see it already, right?
There we go. Yep.
Perfect. Thanks. Yes. So the portfolio page is a feature that we introduced early this year. And as you can see here, we brought a lot of insights to users for them to understand, right, how their account was looking. We have, like at the moment, 6 cards. Let me focus on the 4 at the bottom. We have here 2 cards that are small tables to show the ICP balance. It's for both the tokens and the neurons. There are some values that we will discuss later, but let me go below to the other 2 tables where you can see the rest of your balance of your assets. And on the left, again, we have the tokens, and on the right, we have the neurons. Both tables, both cards are sorted by your balance. And as you can see here, right, I showing, we are seeing 3. But here we can navigate to the tokens where I can see the rest of my assets. Additionally, on the top, we have this total holdings card that shows users, right, the total amount of their portfolio. This is a super helpful insight to understand with one number, right, all the neurons and all the tokens that they have.
Yeah, so this is great. And I think it's a great chance to kind of like circle back to say, like, it really drives home the fact that it encourages participation and ownership of not just the Internet Computer Protocol, but also the apps that have decided to make themselves DAOs on the Internet Computer. And Laura was talking about the need for like incentivization and participation, and that kind of leads into like the rewards management module, which I have noticed the changes live in my own NNS front end. Kind of walk us through that there.
Yes, of course. This card that I didn't mention before, right? The ICP governance rewards and this column, they were the key insights that we introduced a couple of weeks or even months. And they are all about that. Let me go one by one. So let's focus on the ICP governance rewards. As the title already showed, right, this is focused on ICP. And here we have 3 values: the reward balance, staking ratio, and then an estimate. Sadly, I created these neurons that I have today for the demo, so I don't have any rewards yet. But the idea with this rewards balance is that it will show how much maturity my current neurons have earned me so far. On the right, we have the staking ratio. And this is a super helpful percentage that shows, right, which percentage of my total ICP holdings are currently staked. This is super helpful because it gives us very fast, right, a feeling of how much I invested into earning rewards. If my strategy is I want to maximize, the moment that I see here that I don't have 100%, that means that I have some tokens here that I should be converting into neurons, staking into neurons. At this point, right, I have almost 4 tokens of ICP, and I have neurons for the worth of 4 ICP, right? That's why my staking ratio is 50.12. And last, this estimation, also super helpful, because this is not just about how much you have and how you are doing it. This is a bit of like a look into the future. Here, we do a full life cycle of a neuron, and we run an estimation for 7 days. And we calculate, we see how much maturity your current setup could earn you. And based on that, we display it here. And this is a really nice number, right? To understand, okay, how much I'm expecting to earn.
Well, so this obviously applies to the ICP token. Is this also applied to each SNS token as well?
Not this particular one, not this card, but the APY. And maybe I can jump into the APY and explain you why it's important. As you can see here, yeah, following your question, the APY, we have it for both the ICP card, and also the staking, like the SNS neurons card. And for the APY here, we have two values, the max APY and the APY. The max APY is like a theoretical value. For this value, similar to the previous estimate, right? We take the neuron, we maximize everything. That means the age of the neuron, that means the dissolve delay, auto staking, all the small details that we can set up in a neuron. We maximize everything, we turn them on to maximize the rewards. And this is here, what we can see here is an estimation of how much in percentage you can earn every year. On the other hand, the APY, it tells us how much our current setup is earning us. And seeing them here together is super helpful, right? Because I can see, or I can see the difference, right? At the moment, I am 336, but I could get it up to 1344, right? So there is margin to improve.
And that margin comes from perhaps either having a longer, the neuron age going higher, or having a longer dissolve delay?
Exactly, dissolve delay. But let me show you how we can do this. So now jump into my neurons page, where we see here all the neurons. And as you can see, I have two neurons, right? The second one, or the one at the bottom, is one ICP. And this one I'm already maximizing. As you can see, I have the dissolve delay of 8 years, but a couple of two factors that we will see in detail that they are also relevant. So I will take the first one, the one that at the moment is not earning me anything, and let's see what we can do with this one. So as mentioned before, right, we have at the moment an APY of 0, and this can be improved. So let's start, as you pointed out, by increasing the delay. Here we could play, right, with different values from 1 year to 8 years. So let me use the max, the 8 years.
Joining that 8-year gang.
Exactly. This is the way to maximize your rewards. And by doing this change, and let me scroll a bit down, you can see here, right, that my earning rewards already went up, right? My APY is almost like the max APY. The other factor that's going to take it to the max is going to be this checkbox that we have here to automatically stake new maturity. Because by doing this, right, every time that our neurons get more maturity, is going to be raise staked, and by that it's going to get us more and more rewards. As you can see, right, we've reached now the 13.44, so we have maximized. We've done everything that we can for this neuron to earn us as much as we can. One important value that I didn't have to change because it was already like maximized is this locked, right? And we need our neurons to be locked in order to get this max value.
So you mentioned two terms that if you're new to ICP or even new to NNS or SNS governance, two terms was dissolve delay and maturity. Can you kind of give a quick background on what these two terms mean?
Yes. So the dissolve delay, right? This is going to be the amount of time that has to pass for our neuron to be dissolved, to be able that we are able to dissolve it, right? The longer it is, the more rewards it's going to get us. The shorter it is, the less, as you can imagine. And this new feature, right, allows us to quickly to be able to change this value, start with maybe a smaller one, and keep increasing to see how much of this of the max APY we are getting, right? And the other value, the other question that you were referring to was the maturity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the maturity is this concept, right, where our neurons that by participating on governance, that means by voting in proposals, that is directly or indirectly, right, by following, our neurons are going to get maturity. And maturity is a way of representing these rewards that we will get. There is a new process that we introduced this year called disbursed maturity. Before, users were used to this concept called spawn and neuron, right? But we decided that process was a bit complex. And as you pointed out at the beginning today, the idea is to improve the user experience, right? We want the NNS Dapp and we want the process of staking, the process of working with ICP to be simpler. So we replace the spawn maturity with the disbursed maturity. And here you can see the button. Sadly, my neurons don't have yet enough maturity, but by clicking here, we would go through the flow. There is a video from my team where they explain how to go through the dispersed maturity flow. Doesn't take more than a minute, and it's super simple.
I love it. And one of the things I really love, and this is just kudos to you guys and your team in the initial design, is not only is APY proportional to your commitment, the amount of time that you are committing to the DAO, but also your voting rewards are as well. So your voting power. So you're really aligning incentives with in order to get both the maximum rewards as well as the maximum impact. You have to be as firmly committed to that DAO as possible to really have a longer time frame outlook. I love it. Walk us through. There's a couple other features I've noticed playing in the NNS front end where you have like privacy mode and those kind of features. Walk us through those.
Yes, we added also some small UX improvements, right? As you pointed out, we have this height balance. And yeah, as you can imagine, the idea is to be able to have a bit of a privacy. Sometimes we don't want everyone to see how much holding we have, right? So by clicking this button, we can quickly hide all the relevant fields. And additionally, we introduce a reporting functionality that can be used for both transactions and neurons to generate a CSV with the summary of everything that happened to your account. This is quite helpful because sometimes, right, we forget what things we've done, and in one CSV we will have all the information.
I love it. I myself have been guilty of having to go back and try to figure out what I've done in the past, particularly around tax season. So that CSV output is definitely useful to myself, and I'm sure everyone else would echo that watching this. Yusuf, I want to thank you so much for walking us through this. And now I want to bring Ashavir to the stage. I'm going to go ahead, Yusuf, it's okay. I'm going to take off your shared screen and bring on Ashavir. Yeah, thank you so much for walking us through this. It looks phenomenal. All these quality of life improvements are certainly well appreciated by myself, and I'm sure the ICP community. So Ashavir, let's talk about empowering DAO contributors. Walk us through kind of the motivation on this whole pillar with the Neon milestone.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. And by the way, I want to mention that like every time Yusuf explains how this works, this makes more and more sense in my head. I think it's a great, logical continuation from what you've seen like in the front end of the NNS Dapp for managing your assets in the portfolio page towards the DAO framework that is also supported in the front end, and how you can participate, how you can become a participant of a DAO. So that's something that I guess we can discuss now, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, that user experience matters as much as the underlying the underlying foundation that it's being built on, so people can easily understand what they're doing. Yeah, so
exactly.
give us the high level view of this.
Yes, so generally DAOs are communities, right? And we want communities to succeed, and this requires that participants have an easy way to express their voting on various decisions that this DAO needs to make. And an important thing, of course, is security. And here it's much more complex than for regular applications, because whereas a regular application is managed by, say, a company or a team that has direct access to the application, a DAO is kind of a level of indirection that you need to go through in order to manage the underlying DApp. And for security, you need to act quickly in case there's a vulnerability detected, for example, then you would need to upgrade, but that can't be done directly. So the DAO needs to come together and decide that, okay, we're doing this. So acting quickly, making decisions efficiently is a big deal for having DAOs to succeed.
Love it. I love it. By the way, you guys are getting some love in the comments in terms of some cred for the new NNS. So kudos to you guys. All right, so let's start with the dynamic launchpad. I think that's kind of one of the coolest entry points to have this conversation on. I don't know if you want to share your screen, if so I can promote it, but let's walk through all the changes there.
Yes, I want to try sharing. So actually, this is the perfect overview of the DAOs on ICP. Can you see it? Yes.
Yep.
This is called the Launchpad. So it's a special dedicated page on the NNS Dapp front end where you can see the featured projects. So these are SNS DAOs that already launched. I mean, all of these already launched, but these are kind of especially high ranking according to some metric. And you can have an overview of all the dApps that launched on ICP over time that are still running. So there's quite a few of them, as you can see. And on this page, there's a card per project, right? So what is the information that is indicated here? So you can see at a glance this FDV value, which is the easiest way to get an idea how big this project is at the moment and how well it's doing. This is the fully dissolved valuation. So it's basically a product of the current token price specific to that DAO times the total supply of the token. And you can see the ballpark of, the FDV values for these featured projects. It's, I think, quite impressive given that each of them is created and operated by a relatively small team of developers. They do have a community to back them, and this is what it shows. Then there's a proposal activity. So this is another crucial metric for a DAO is, of course, not just like how much it managed to raise, but how active is the community now after it's launched. And here you can see that, well, it's also specific, very much specific on what type of project this is, what business is under the hood, or maybe it's not even a business, maybe it's a different type of organization, right? And so for a Gold DAO, we can see that there's 4 proposals a week, and that's actually a good metric. It means that every week there's as many as 4 decisions being made. But for example, for OpenChat, you can see that there's significantly more. There's 9 proposals a week of activity. So this is a really active DAO. And no surprise here because they integrate a nice interface for voting on proposals into their own DApp. So this, of course, encourages users to be even more active and to make more decisions for the DAO. And then there's a participation. So here you can see that I'm currently logged into an account that participated in some of the DAOs, but not others. And you will be able to tell the projects where you participated by looking at this icon at the top right. So here I'm a participant of OpenChat, Decide AI, and Kinnick out of the featured projects, but I'm not a participant, say, in Conswap from this account. So there's no indication. That's how you can tell. And the My Participation column, it just contains the amount of ICP that I've committed during the swap during the decentralization swap process. So I guess I can go a bit deeper into how you can look into every given project, or maybe you can guide where we should move from here, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that proposal activity is a great thing to like circle back on to point out that DAOs on ICP are not like DAOs on other blockchains where usually it's just like a treasury management process or a almost like a community voting, but the decisions aren't autonomously executed. It requires some sort of central authority to execute a decision. DAOs on ICP are actually fully and autonomously governed code, including front and back end. And so that's why you see, I gave a DeFi Llama stat of 16 out of 25 of the most active DAOs in crypto or on ICP. And that's where that really comes from, is because the DAOs are empowered to do a lot more. And I think that maybe this is a good chance to jump into the SNS proposals and kind of give some clarity of updates you guys have made for there.
Indeed. So that's another thing, that another little feature, which is technically conceptually rather simple, but we're really proud of this because of how much simplicity it brings to the interface. So if you go to the voting page, then you can select which DAO you want to track the proposals in. And first of all, there's actionable proposals. So this was out for a while, but it's also a very nice feature where you can see my particular account doesn't have any actionable proposals for this one. But if I go to, let's say, where do I have OpenChat? then here, well, at this time, I also don't have any actionable proposals, so I can't show you that. But it's actually good. It means I don't need to spend time, scrolling through dozens of proposals before I find something where I can participate. So I'm all done at this time. But you can imagine how this can simplify your life on a daily basis. And then you would just have like a subset of the proposals that are there, but it's still quite a lot. So, to give you another dimension where you can filter down the search for specific proposals, because as a user, you have interest in one aspect of the DAO, but you might not have interest in every single aspect at all times. So you might want to filter that by topic, and that's exactly what we implemented. So here we're enabling users to decide which topic they want to track proposals in, and only see those proposals. And this is something that is simplifying the life of active DAO participants quite a bit. So
yeah,
I can track treasury and asset management proposals completely independently of the others, and I can make decisions one topic at a time.
I love that. I know for myself that that scroll column to the left, that I've used that because you get the little bubbles that tell you how many actionable proposals are in each one, so I can quickly just see which DAOs I need to do my voting on. But now let's walk through like vote delegation, because being able to delegate your vote by topic is actually, I think, a significant milestone in terms of like DAO efficiency. Walk us through what that is and what changes are coming from this milestone.
Yeah, so it's a great segue from what we were discussing just now, because we believe that experts are those who can make the best decisions. So, for example, if you're like a accounting expert or a financial professional, then you probably have better knowledge on how to track treasury operations on the DAO, right? But you might not have a view on how to best track the upgrades of the underlying framework that the DAO is using. And for this reason, it's super convenient and kind of makes sense if there's a way for experts to make decisions and others to delegate their voting on specific topics to those experts. And this is what you can now do also using the same concept of proposal topics. But as somebody who doesn't want to manually vote on certain proposal topics, you can now specifically choose those topics to be delegated to other neurons. And this has various use cases. So I want to mention two use cases. So the first one that I already mentioned is that you know an expert in the field and you trust them to make better decisions on your behalf. And this is something you can use voting delegation for. So to do that, you would use this interface in the neuron staking page of the NNS Dapp, and I'll go there in a bit. But another use case, which is also very common, is that you want to follow yourself. So when people participate in SNS DAOs, they receive multiple neurons for their successful participation, and we call this a neuron basket. And the idea is that you have neurons with varying dissolve delay in the beginning. Here you see that all of them are 1 year, because at some point I just kind of maxed it out. But one of the neurons is something that you can liquidate, and you can use those tokens and maybe trade them on the DEX, or you can also decide to create a neuron out of it, but it's up to you what you do with it. Whereas the neuron with the greatest dissolve delay is the one that has the most vested interest in the success of the DAO, right? So this gives incentive to participants in a decentralization swap to kind of have the flexibility, but also have skin in the game. And when users, after a successful decentralization swap completes, when users observe this neuron basket, they ask the question, but okay, if I want several neurons to have a dissolve delay, how do I make voting simple? Because do I now have to vote from each individual neuron on all the proposals, separately? And the answer is that, well, first of all, the front end is helping you already, but in order to make this a really streamlined process, you can take one of your neurons and kind of make all other neurons that supposed to vote the same way its followers. And this is another place where voting delegation comes into play. So let me quickly show you how this works, because it's super simple. So for example, here you can see that I have one of the neurons with a larger stake than the others, and it already has voting delegation set up, but the others don't. And I want to only vote from, using this larger neuron, and have the rest of the neurons follow the same decisions. So for that, I need to copy the ID of this larger neuron, and then click on the next one that I want to set up. And this brings us to the neuron management page, basically where you can set the parameters or change the parameters of this particular neuron. And in the voting delegation section is where we want to change something. So I'm going to click on follow neurons. And this brings us to this new interface, which also is split by proposal topics. So it's a relatively small number of decisions that you have to make. You don't need to decide for each individual proposal type, because it used to be that way. It was a bit of a nightmare because every SNS DAO has its own list of custom proposals, so it's hard to keep track of. Whereas the 7 topics that you see here, they're the same for every DAO that we have on ICP. So you don't even need to know the specifics of a specific project in order to be able to make these decisions efficiently. And if I want to follow my neuron, then probably it's going to cover every single topic. So I'm going to check all the boxes and then confirm with the neuron ID that I just copied. Great. And now you can see the green checkbox indicate that I'm following somebody on those topics. So if I go back to the neuron staking page for open chat, you can see that now my second neuron that we just set up has this checkbox. It means that I'm not missing out on any of the voting rewards, because, if somebody votes, then like if my delegates vote in a particular way, then this neuron will follow them and therefore get the same maximum voting rewards for all of those topics. So that's the gist of it.
It's liquid democracy in 15 seconds or less. That's phenomenal. Now, there's a lot of other quality of life improvements and features that we could go through, but I think what people are going to be mostly interested in is liquidity pools, because I know liquidity is really at the heart and center of a lot of activities within Web3. And so walk us through like what changes are happening with liquidity pools and why these are meaningful changes.
Yeah, that's a great other thing that we've been working on. I really like this feature. I can't share my screen and show it to you, unfortunately, just yet, because it's so new. We're expecting the first SNS DAO to start using this feature in the next few weeks, but anyone can already, very soon, any SNS can start using it. The feature flag will be switched on in the next week or so. What is this about? So a problem that DAOs face is also like, how do you get liquidity into the DEX so that your users can actually exchange the tokens and support healthy DeFi? So this is a big challenge, because in order for a DAO to allocate liquidity, they need to, like, a lot of users who own tokens need to coordinate their actions, or there needs to be like a huge whale that provides liquidity for other smaller participants. But a natural way of solving this problem is, of course, to use some of the treasury assets that the DAO receives when it is created to support liquidity and to support trading and DeFi. And this was a challenge because there were these low-level proposals for moving treasury assets. But in order to allocate liquidity, you need to orchestrate a whole bunch of things on the DEX. The DEX is basically a decentralized exchange where users can trade their tokens, right? And a lot of them are, of course, interested. They have financial incentive to participate. So this is an important aspect for in the life of each DAO. So what we've done is we just put everything on chain, and now if an SNS project needs to allocate liquidity out of its treasury, there's only one proposal that it would need to pass, that the community would need to vote for. Here, for users who are familiar with the framework already, I want to mention that, of course, this is a critical proposal, so it has the extra requirements that we impose on treasury-related proposals. But still, it's in terms of usability, it's very transparent. You can see how many tokens, how many ICP tokens, and how many DAO native tokens are going to be sent and allocated in a particular DEX, and which DEX that is going to be. And then there's going to be a way to audit for anyone interested. They can see what are the transactions, what is the current balance of your DAO. And of course, this allows reducing the amount of time that the DAO takes from the moment it's created to the moment when users can actually trade, to just a few days, whereas beforehand it was weeks and weeks, and it wasn't even certain that you can efficiently trade the DAO tokens.
I'm assuming the DAO maintains authority over that, like that LP share, so the liquidity is still controlled by the DAO even after the injection.
Absolutely. So this is implemented as kind of an extension of the standard SNS framework, but in a way that only the DAO itself. So the DAO itself remains the owner of all the assets allocated to the DEX. Of course, here it's worth pointing out that we assume that the DEX can be trusted, but this goes without saying with any DeFi. Yeah, it's awesome to think of liquidity that is controlled by a DAO. So just again, removing trust assumptions within an ecosystem, DeFi ecosystem is phenomenal. Ashvir, I want to thank you so much for your time and walking us through this and all the amazing work you and your team are doing. Thank you very much.
Let's bring Laura back up again to land this plane and kind of walk us through like the next steps for, so Neon Milestone is a huge accomplishment. I'm sure you guys have been working hard, and now you finally get maybe 1 day to rest, and then tomorrow you get to pick it all back up again. So kind of walk us through how you see like next things for governance.
Of course, we're already working on the next things. Yeah, I mean, in background, we have also been working actually on some changes, supporting some features that I think the community might more see as maybe like protocol changes, specifically in the registry canister, which is kind of part of the governance and holding all the information on, which nodes are in which subnets and all of that. But I would maybe like to call out one feature that we have been started working on, which is improvements to the so-called known neurons. So we talked about the vote delegation, and in the NNS there is a way of kind of defining some of these experts that can be followed, or that one can delegate their voting power to, and we call those known neurons. So they can register via proposal, and they would kind of be listed both on the NNS Dapp, but also on the dashboard and other places. And then if you're looking for like, who can I delegate my voting power to, you can kind of find them there. But now we have actually a big list of these neurons. Some of them are not really voting anymore. And we have never implemented a way to remove them again. So one obvious thing that we want to do first is just like close this life cycle, also enable that one can edit or remove these known neurons again by proposal, of course, because they were also added by proposal. But then we also want to add more transparency to these neurons, so that I think this is kind of the next step on enabling people to make good, well-informed decisions. If you're not the one actually voting yourself, but you rather want to delegate, like how can I make sure I can find out who is a good person to delegate to? And to enable that, we want to both allow the known neurons to declare more information about themselves, maybe, have links to socials, or like commit to certain topics, because we have just seen that delegation is actually based on topics, right? So maybe they should be able to declare like, I always vote on this topic, maybe not on others, because that's kind of the way how it has developed, that the known neurons work. But then on top of these self-declared features or aspects, we also want to have some statistics. So are these neurons actually voting on the topics where they committed to? So I think this will be very interesting and a very helpful feature for everyone that wants to delegate to actually make better decisions. And we have presented that in the forum, and yeah, we've already kind of started working on that.
I love it. I love especially, Ashabir gave the demo of copying the neuron ID, neurons as a way to get a more human readable version of that, and for people
Absolutely.
to kind of and not everyone has. I have a node, a node management guy. I got a tokenomics guy. But not everyone has somebody they're willing to trust with their decisions. So having the no neuron really is an easy way for people to self-identify their expertise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You mentioned the forum, so that's forum.definity.org, correct? Good place to have the conversation. I'm going to put up, I have NNS.IC0.app. If you saw 2 different demos happen today, this is a great place to go to see that live, to see these changes live. Obviously, follow Definity on X and you subscribe on YouTube. Laura, anything you want to kind of close us out with in terms of everything we discussed today?
I think we gave a great overview of our features that we have been working on so far this year. And yeah, looking forward to what's to come next.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, liquid democracy, this is a whole brand new area that I think the internet computer ecosystem is trailblazing in. This is the future way of people to take ownership and accountability of the things that they use on an everyday basis. And so I definitely recommend checking out nns.ic0.app. Follow Definity, keep up to date, and most importantly, just get interested in governance and start getting engaged in it. Until next time, I want to thank my guests, Laura, Ashavir, and Youssef, and we'll see you guys the next time we have some more major updates to governance on ICP. Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, Kyle, for leading us through this again. It was a pleasure.
All right. Until next time, I'll talk with you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.